Okay. And now we're going to go live in a second. Facebook is going to go through its stuff here.
Okay.
Just sit tight.
Okay. You let me know.
Mm-hmm. Victoria Gallucci. Did I say it right?
Gallucci. Gallucci. Yes.
Got you.
And you go by Matt or Matthew?
Matt's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Got it. This meeting is live streaming. We're rolling live. Let's see. I'll try and give it a countdown. 4, 3, 2, 1. And I believe we are live. Okay. All right. We're live on Facebook. How is everybody doing? This is Live and Local with Matt DeFeedy from Realty Executives Elite Homes in Nutley. And today we got something a little different. We're going to be speaking to Victoria Gallucci.
Yes.
And she is a addiction/trauma coach, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Got that right. Okay. And we're going to go through the steps. So I'm going to ask her what that is, and we're going to explain it to you in a second. And I'm going to ask her how she got into it. So thank you, Victoria, for coming on here.
You're welcome.
This is a little different than what we're accustomed to. You know, usually it's like a deli or a business or a service, but I figured we'll throw this one in here in the mix. This is a little different topic that we're dealing with. So tell me, what is a addiction/trauma coach?
Well, what a coach is someone that meets with a person who is struggling between what's going on in their life and how they want to be authentically living their life. And in my case, if it's an addiction, it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be gambling, it could be binging TV. There's a variety of what we call hard addictions like alcohol and soft addictions like spending too much time online.
Okay.
I meet with someone, I talk about, tell me about what's standing in between you and living your authentic life. And then I listen, and then we come up with a plan. How can we help you work your way through whatever your addiction is and create a plan that moves you forward in your life in a constructive, sane, safe, happy way? And that's what we do.
Okay. That's a pretty big umbrella, because I guess
yes, it is.
You're dealing with not only the addictions, but personalities of the person that has the addiction.
Yes.
And you're coaching while they're going through this.
Absolutely. After my initial meeting, we set up regular coaching calls. Okay. And because I have a background as a peer counselor, I can, to an extent, talk about the emotional and mental piece of what's going on. But ultimately, my goal is to provide resources, to provide support, and to help that person create their own plan, an individualized plan, because this is not one size fits all. Everyone is unique, and every approach for a solution can be unique. So I'll help them devise a plan. And then we have weekly calls, maybe once a week, sometimes twice a week, to make sure that they're sticking with that plan, because it's your plan. You devise it. My job is to just help you stick with it so that you can move your way into living a healthier, happier, saner life.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a scenario because that's the easiest way for me to figure it out. So an easy one, well, maybe not easy, but how about somebody who's addicted to alcohol? You know, they have different programs for people that are, you know, that I forgot what it was called, like AA, alcohol.
That's just one out of about 26 different programs.
Okay, there's a bunch of different programs.
Yeah.
So this person, they're having a battle with alcohol.
Yeah.
So are they reaching out to you when they're in the throes of their addiction, or when they're not, or are they reaching out to you whenever they feel like they want to go have a drink?
All of the above. So yes, people have contacted me because they've tried to stop drinking and then they fall back into it. So maybe they haven't had a drink in 3 weeks and they feel like it. So they reach out and say, boy, I really need some support. And I'm not comfortable in sitting in a church basement at a 12-step meeting. So we'll talk through what ways can you manage that trigger to drink? What ways can we find around it so that you can build a reference in your head of, oh, I had that trigger and I did this. I went for a walk. I went swimming at the Y. I went to the library and met friends for coffee. And we build up sort of a reference of how do you get to the other side of the trigger?
Okay.
So that's one scenario. People call me drunk and say, I'm so sick of the way I feel. I'm drunk right now. Can I just talk to you? People call me, they want to do dry January. So it's just they want to take a month off. They're sober curious. It's not a one stop. It's not a one size person that walks into my business, and it's not a one size solution for whoever I end up working with.
So you're working with people that are all walks of life, I'm assuming, from the from the guy that's a construction worker to the guy that's a CEO of a company.
Yes, absolutely.
And even
Absolutely.
people at that caliber still need help.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
now,
asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually, and that the addiction coaching industry has taken off dramatically. We're really growing because people are now realizing it's okay to ask for help. And there are a lot of people that don't, either for COVID reasons or personal reasons, don't want to show up in a room with a bunch of people. They really want one person in their life that they can laser focus on their issue and get support, feedback, and a plan. And that's how where a coach comes in.
kind of set up some guidelines for them to reference when they're going through this. And so
Yeah.
I'm assuming everybody's different. Um, you don't just go to one session and say, "Hey, I'm cured," and walk away, and that's it. You're done.
No, no. It takes it. I mean, it depends, because once you start working with somebody on making life changes, we're not always talking about the substance. We're starting to talk about, well, I'm thinking that I'd like to take a painting class, but I'm so nervous. I've never done a painting class. So we find the root of what keeps them from getting to where they want to be in life. And I'll just coach them through the route. Oh, you're afraid of taking an art class, but you think an art class would be a good place to go instead of going to a bar. Let's talk about what you're afraid of. Let's start by you just doing a simple drawing. I'll just come up with some creative ways to take on that fear, so that person can jump through the fear. And now whatever it is they're afraid of has become a resource in their life of something positive.
Okay.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I'm getting to my next question was, so addiction, I get it. Trauma. Now, when I think trauma, I think PTSD, military,
Yeah.
uh, people that are in the throes of combat, see things that leave an indelible impression on their mind for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you get some of that, but there's also other types of trauma, like childhood trauma.
Yes, I
Uh,
work with a lot of that.
yeah, childhood trauma could be, a child witnessing some kind of violent act or some kind of violent act bestowed upon them when they're
Yes.
a child. I'm sure,
Yes,
there's a lot of that.
there
Uh,
is.
so now we get to that side. So say you're dealing with a gentleman that's traumatized from when he was a child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe he had abusive parents or whatever that was, or an abusive sibling or uncle, aunt, whatever it may be. I'm assuming it's kind of the same treatment as the addiction, or is it slightly different?
Well, in my experience, I have found that a high percentage of people that have a substance abuse problem have childhood trauma as the root cause.
Okay.
So because I'm also a peer counselor, I took a 6-month training course in New York City a couple of decades ago because I wanted to mentor women at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, the women's prison in New York.
Okay.
So as a peer counselor with a trauma background, I would coach them into finding a language to really talk about what happened and to help them properly label these issues, because oftentimes people don't even know what it is that's the trauma beneath the surface. So I explore that with them. I have a list of references of qualified therapists, both in New York and in the Essex County area, that deal with trauma. I often refer people to someone that they can do long-term counseling with. I am a counselor, but I like to refer them to someone that really specializes. So I take on the issues. I help them define. I listen. A lot of times people just need to talk it out with someone that feels safe.
Well, you touched on something right there. The women's correctional facility. What was the common thread that you discovered working with the women in that facility? What was the common theme?
This is the easiest question you're going to ask me. The common thread is that 98% of women who are incarcerated on drug-related charges. And out of that 98%, 97% of those women have sexual abuse trauma in their childhood.
Got it.
And that's the big story that, of how we are dealing and not dealing with the incarcerated, not providing them with solutions to what ended them up in prison in the first place.
I know you work with women in it, but do you think I'm assuming it's a different thread with men.
I've never worked with men in a prison setting. I know people that do work with men, including Tim Robbins, who runs theater groups for men in prison. He's had a high success rate with the work he does. But yes, it would at the end of the day, yes, the root cause, if it's trauma, it's going to be the same approach, whether you're a female or a male.
Well, usually there was some alcoholism or drug abuse in the home, and it set that person off on the wrong path.
Well, yes, alcoholic parents can set somebody on the wrong path because an alcoholic home tends to be full of chaos and kids don't know how to manage the chaos, or there's a void in their life because their parents aren't capable of properly parenting and they don't know how to handle the void in their life. All these missing pieces of a safe and happy childhood can lead to addiction issues.
I've had a couple of people that I've known that have come out of rather same type of scenarios when they were children, and they totally went the opposite way. Meaning that they were totally the opposite of their parents. Like they had two parents that were, or one of them was heavily addicted to alcohol or drugs, and they grew up with that. And as they became adults, they actually went 100% the other way.
Okay.
They somehow dealt with their trauma before it got a hold of them. But a majority, and I know some people that have not and still have the after effects of what their parents have done, they're still dealing with it. As far as women being incarcerated, I could see where, years ago, sexual abuse wasn't out there as much as it is today.
Right.
It wasn't reported as much.
Right.
Because you'll hear some stories of some older ladies that went through that with their kids, and they never reported it, whether it be, a family member that did it to them or something. It was kept, kind of suppressed, and they just lived with it for life, which is terrible, which is horrible. Yeah, that's interesting. Tim Robbins, the director.
Yes, the actor and director. He does theater programs in men's prisons, and his work is remarkable.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I didn't even realize that. I guess
so. Go ahead. Just to feed off of what you just said. I remember my mother came to visit me once when I lived in New York City, and we got on a subway to go see a play. And up on the ads, there were 1-800 numbers for drinking, for gambling, for domestic abuse. And my mother, who went through hell with my father, turned to me and said, there were no 1-800 numbers when you guys were kids. Wow. And that said a lot to me. Wow. There are 1-800 numbers now. There are social media platforms. But when my mother was 25 years old and raising kids with my father, there wasn't a toll-free number for anything.
And that's going to take me into my next question. How did you get into this field? I'm assuming that's it right there. That's the path that led you there. Yes, of course. It's one of the threads of the path. The biggest piece of how I got into this work was that I read an article once in the New York Times about an incarcerated woman at Bedford Hills Correctional Institute was pregnant, and when she was taken to a hospital off-site to have the baby, because she was a criminal, she was handcuffed to the bed. And I was so stunned to hear that a woman giving birth was handcuffed to the bed because she'd been incarcerated, like she's going to get up and run when she's in labor to try to escape the hospital, that I called the person that wrote the article. I wanted to learn more, and my desire to learn more led me to this peer training program that I got involved in so that I could actually work with women in prison as a mentor.
That's how all of this started. Now, going into addiction recovery work, sure, my work with women in prison, I wanted, first of all, the only recovery platform they had in prison was the 12-step recovery. And a lot of the women in the prison weren't comfortable with it. So we started developing different ways for them to get group support without it being a 12-step model. And that segued into me moving out to New Jersey. I became a certified home health care aide, and I started working with seniors and found many seniors had drinking problems or they were overtaking their medication. And I realized these are people in the last chapters of their life, and all of them had traumatic stories to tell me. And I would sit and listen and realize, here's somebody is 75, 85, 90 years old, still holding on to trauma. And drinking. I had a client who was hiding bottles around the house. What could I do to help senior people deal with issues that were never talked about? Like you said, they grew up in a generation where the stuff was never mentioned.
Right.
And that was really ultimately the leap I took into training to be an addiction recovery coach, was that I wanted to reach across the spectrum, incarcerated people, elderly people, the LGBT community. I wanted to be able to provide support for all these marginalized people who have addiction or trauma issues that are really stalling their life.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So now I'm going to bring it back to a little lighter subject. What about people
Okay.
that are addicted to like the internet, like you said? Like, look, I think this device here is an addiction, right? And there's no way of getting
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah, me
Even
too.
I'm addicted to it to a certain point. But I think this is, it's a great device. It's a great tool. We have access to all kinds of knowledge right here at our
Yes.
fingertips. But I think there's a part of it that is not good.
Yes.
The addiction to this device.
Yes.
With that, how do you deal with somebody that says, "Hey, I'm addicted to Instagram"? I just saw this story a couple of weeks ago too. Somebody was addicted to Instagram. How do
Yeah.
you help them?
Well, that's a good question, because I found that as the result of the pandemic, I became a scrolling addict. I would just sit down and start going through these reels. And the next thing I know, it'd be 45 minutes later. And all I've done is watch total strangers get haircuts or videos of dogs. Or I mean, I can be, watching a dog. I have a dog in my house and I'm scrolling through dog videos. Like, there's a dog right in front of me. What am I doing? So that's called a soft addiction, because it's not like you're getting into a car and driving after scrolling for 45 minutes and you have a scrolling related accident. Soft addictions, they have their own insidiousness. And the way that I handle my own and the way that I coach people is set a timer. And when the timer goes off, whether you stop scrolling or not,
The phone goes
that
off.
timer is your accountability. It's your decision when your Alexa app says 10 minutes are up. It's your decision as to whether you're going to keep scrolling. And if somebody keeps scrolling and that's the conversation we're having, I ask them, what could you have been doing? And why did you choose not to do it? Like, go for a walk. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe you're an artist. Why choosing scrolling over art, over something else? And it usually comes down to some people, there's always sort of a need to be numb or a need to check out, stop the world and get off. And we talk about what that feels like.
Yeah, you mentioned the word before, insidious, and that's a good word to use, because the people that design these apps and these interfaces, they're done intentionally. It's the gaming effect, but it's having an ancillary effect on people's psyches, because they're scrolling through and they're seeing people with a lot of money, fancy cars and fancy homes, and they're feeling less than adequate, and it's causing depression.
Yes,
Younger people.
absolutely. Especially teens.
Yeah, and there's two sides of it. There's the gamified side of it, just like a slot machine. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep scrolling.
Yeah.
That's why apps like TikTok
Oh, yeah.
and it's constant, and the content is less than stellar. And
Absolutely.
that gets embedded into a young person's subconscious, and they think,
Yes.
hey, I need to be like Kim Kardashian. I need to be like whatever.
I need to be an influencer, whatever that means.
To be an influencer. Yeah. It's the definition of an influencer: influencing other people to do stupid things, basically. you know?
Exactly.
You know,
Or
well,
to try to be like the person that's
yes,
who's,
like all these
and the
challenges
short,
we saw.
yes. And the length of the videos, that short length of a video,
Open,
it has set our minds to have less and less focus and less concentration, because if everything's coming at me in 30-second increments, and then I'm going to sit down and read a book, the book's not doing the same thing. I'm not getting that same hit in my brain,
right.
and I'm less inclined to read. That's something I'm admitting out loud right now, is that I don't read as much as I used to. I'm on my computer, I'm on my phone.
Yep.
And I am slowly trying to bring myself back around to my number one joy, which once upon a time was reading books.
Yeah. I mean, I like reading. I still like reading a book. I have books on my phone, on my iPad. I buy them. I read a little bit at a time. I never read through a whole book. I kind of read bits and pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed that like my daughter, she's, early 20s, 19, 20. And, she's been using this device since she was 3 years old.
Yeah.
And that's her whole life is on that thing. And if she don't have a power cord near her somewhere to make sure she gets enough power, you got to be tethered somewhere to something. She's all out of sorts.
Yes.
And
Yes. So I do have a couple of parents that I'm working with who bring me into the home to work with the teens, because they're exhausted on trying to have this conversation of get off the phone, sit, no phones at the dinner table, go for a walk. So one of my goals is to set up a weekly program where kids just come. I don't know where I'm going to hold these get-togethers. I'm going to have pizza and sodas, and the phones have to be put in a basket at the door. And we just sit and talk. I want to set up one of those for LGBTQ children and adolescents. But I just want kids to come and find a place to talk where we put down the phones and we really just talk about what's going on, because there's a lot going on in a teenage mind. And the more they delve into this, the less likely they are to have a conversation with their peers or the adults in their life. And they need that feedback. They need that communication, but they're lost in the scrolling.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen people 2 feet from each other text each other rather than talk.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I've definitely seen that.
Yeah.
I don't even think the last time I had a dinner with somebody and our phones weren't on the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a form of an addiction. That's
It is definitely an addiction, and it's set up to be one. You taking words from you, it's set up to be one.
Oh yeah, and it creates billions and billions of dollars. Absolutely, absolutely.
It creates, as you mentioned, self-esteem issues, and part of why I'm focusing on the LGBTQ community is because they're seeing things on the internet that either support their exploration or bullies them into feeling like crap about their exploration of their identity. And I don't want kids to have that as the only way that they can form their identity during those tender teenage years when you're not sure who you are, how you look, or what your sexual preferences are.
Yeah.
We need a different way than having them just scroll through the internet and try to find the solution there, because it's not there.
No, I agree with you on that. Yeah, they're going to get all the wrong answers there. No, totally. So how does somebody get in contact with you?
Well,
Want to reach out to you? You have a website? You have an email?
I do.
Okay.
I do. My website is recoveryhealingcoaching.com. Recoveryhealingcoaching.com. I know, it's the only name I could find that wasn't already taken.
And they call you? Do you have a cell phone number or a phone number?
I prefer people to reach out to me via email first. I mean, I can give my cell phone number because I do want to hear from people. My cell phone number is 973-652-7161. I can set up a consultation on the phone. You can also go to my website, which is recoveryhealingcoaching.com. And there's all sorts of information about my sessions, my fees, and who I am and what I'm all about. I'm really all about helping people create their authentic life, and not just create it, but be able to find a way to sustain it.
Gotcha. Sorry, my phone started ringing. I don't know why.
That's okay. That's, I'm a member, I'm a long-term member of the Montclair community, and I'm just all about community service and helping people, and again, helping people live their best lives. If I can be part of the solution, that's what I'm here for.
Perfect. And we're going to end it there. And that was a lot to digest in 25 minutes, but it's important. And if anybody has any questions, you could reach out to Victoria.
Absolutely.
Oh, it says, oh, your name says Tori on there, but it's Victoria.
Yep.
Victoria
Either
Kluge.
one, Tori or Victoria. I go by both.
I want to thank you for doing this, and it's going to be replayed. It'll be on the Facebook page probably in a day or two. I got to put, I'm sorry, the YouTube site. I'll send you the link so you can take a look at it. Okay.
Okay. What's your YouTube page called?
It's let me see. It's going to be on the @Nutley NJ Realtor, but I'll send you the link.
Okay. Send me everything.
Yep.
Great. Thank
right.
you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and you have a great day. I'll
You
talk to you.
too. Bye, Matthew.
Bye bye.